We're making pie dough. Tender pie crust recipe, not hard, you don't need any fancy tools. The key to a really good pie crust is to keep everything really cold. Starting out even with your dry ingredients, I've had my flour, sugar, and salt in the freezer before I even started putting it together to keep them super duper cold. I have a tablespoon of sugar, this is optional, kosher salt. Mix that together. My pie crust, I'm using a combination of butter and shortening. I like to cut everything, the shortening and the butter, into just little cubes. Put it right in. I'm gonna take my pastry cutter, or you could even just use 2 forks to cut in the fats. Not just like the little pea-sized pieces, but even some like almond-sized pieces of the fats are okay too. Should look something like this. Staying on trend with keeping everything nice and cold, you have some ice cold water here. Here is that you don't wanna add too much. Just slowly stream it in, and then I'm gonna turn the dough out onto my clean work surface here and then start to bring the dough together. Remember, as you're working with the dough, just work with like a light, gentle touch. There we go. We got our beautiful dough, and I'm gonna wrap it in plastic wrap for about 1 to 2 hours. That's it. It's been actually chilling overnight because I made it last night. Movie magic. We're gonna unwrap it. And I just took the dough out of the fridge about 10 minutes ago. We want everything nice and cold, but we also don't want it like super cold so where you can't roll it out. And then when you roll it out, it gets cracks along the edges. Flour the work surface, top of your dough just a little bit. Flour your rolling pin too. You want to grab your pie pan. A ceramic dish like this makes for a really beautiful presentation, but you can also just use a metal one. If you're going to remember one thing other than keep your ingredients cold, it's to keep the crust moving. You can flip it, you can turn it, just keep the crust moving, help prevent it from sticking, and just so you get a nice even roll. You notice that the edges are cracking, your dough might be still just a little cold still, so just kind of let it hang out for a bit at room temp, or just pinch those edges back together and it'll be fine. Gently take my rolling pin, roll the dough gently into the pan. A bunch of overhang. I'm going to just tuck it under, and that's gonna help create a nice, thick, sturdy pie crust. 2 fingers and 1 thumb. Boop, boop. Look how beautiful she is, but my warm hands have now like touched the dough all over. So I'm gonna place it back in the freezer for like 30 minutes or up to an hour, and then I'll bake her. Okay, it's chilled, it's looking beautiful, it's nice and cold, as you can see right here. I'm gonna take a piece of parchment paper. Need 2 sets of pie weights, or you can use dried beans, whatever you have, but I like to use 2 sets so I can really push all the pie weights to the edges. Into the oven she goes with the pie weights in, parchment paper on top at 375 for 15 minutes. Looking great. Just gonna take a fork and poke the bottom of the crust. I don't want the crust to puff up in the center. I have this pie crust shield that I'm gonna place over so the beautiful crust doesn't burn too much. And that's it, homemade pie crust. Now I'm gonna make my pumpkin pie.